You are about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOCDALI. So he was due to be back in the UK today for preseason training. And unfortunately, Diogo had a blowout of his blowout of his tire, goes off the road. And when you look at the car, and he was in a Lamborghini, It went off the road into an embankment, but completely on fire. And the vegetation around there lit up. And I understand somebody possibly going at a fast speed and flipping. I mean, cars ignite. But you're looking at, I've gone off of the road into embankments and thank God never ignited in flames. But I got to tell you, we're hearing of these car deaths over and over again, where the fire consumed the victims. Now, it could be he was driving at a high speed. We don't have enough details, but the car looks completely demolished and burnt to a crisp. And car fires are, I think, becoming more and more prevalent. Now, he was in a Lamborghini. I don't know the type. Some are saying it was a hybrid. Some were saying it was gas-powered. And I know we're having a lot of anxiety about electric vehicles, hybrids, the batteries versus gas. Technically, gas-powered vehicles have more car fires, even if they filter out the numbers. But my issue is we are seeing cars that maybe didn't have to light on fire, ignite. And so I want to know what's happening in terms of fire suppression systems, fire protection. Now, I understand you have a gas tank. All right? I mean, you're going to be flammable. You have a lithium-ion battery. You're going to be flammable. Okay, there's no way to make a car unflammable. But I really want to see studies looking at, was the mechanism of the accident really that inflammatory, shall we say, to cause flames and it being burnt to a crisp? Or, are we now driving vehicles that are more at fire risk? And I think we have to have some honest conversations about this, because I'm looking at this vehicle and I could be wrong. It could be that he hit something, but they're saying, the initial reports are saying he veered off the road. He was maybe trying to pass somebody, and then he goes off the road into the embankment. Now, if you do flip multiple times, that could cause sparks, and that could ignite something. But I got to tell you, I mean, you see a car on the side of the road completely in flames. And I've seen this multiple times, either driving by accidents, and it really begs the question, are we, while we're looking at car safety and while we're looking at airbags and, dent protection and all that, what are we doing in terms of fire protection? We have to have suppression systems in place, which some cars do, where as soon as there is something that could possibly heat up the battery or ignite that there could be some sort of a protection or barrier or foam. But I'm just looking at this and what was it, the Raiders player who hit the woman in the RAV4 and it was Henry Ruggs, again, high speed impact, but people said they could hear her screaming in the car while it engulfed in flames. So, it's one thing to be in a car accident and to be sustaining the damage. And I've been in a lot of car accidents, right? And, it just, beat up and scrunched in. But it just seems to me that more people are in an inferno these days. Why? Is it because of the batteries? Is it the way we're building the gas tank? Yeah, I'd like to know more. And like I said, some people are saying that he was driving a hybrid. I don't know the type of Lamborghini he was in. There's some varying reports on that. But now that we have many more vehicles that have these batteries, whether they're hybrid or electric or if a short circuit in an EV battery occurs, whether it's a crash or overheating or a flooding, the cell case can burst. Once the cell ignites, it cascades to the other cells, causing this thermal runaway and then causing a fire. These fiery crashes these fires are very difficult to put out. So many times when we see the car, or like we saw with Pacific Palisades, the houses where they couldn't be extinguished, especially if they had an electric vehicle in their garage, all you see is the remnants of the burnt to the crisp. And so we need more data on how many of these car fires, what exactly is their car. Now, the National Transportation Safety Board did do a study a few years ago, and they said gas cars are much more at risk. All right, which it's gas. I get that. But, looking at this and the poor men, in this accident, we really need to talk about car fires and how to protect our newer cars from becoming infernos. 1-877 Doc Daliah. Don't go away.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So happy 4th of July weekend. Yeehaw! I love 4th of July. Yeah, it's definitely up there in my favorite holidays. But it's what I really like, and it's not just about the fireworks. It's about you see the whole city, you see the whole country celebrate together. It's one of the very few times in our recent history where America is united. Although we're already hearing that some places are canceling their 4th of July celebrations, but when you see, all Americans, all of us from different races and demographics and genders and types and being out there, enjoying the fireworks, waving our flags, I love it. It makes you feel good. Now, it's hot. I'm really happy that this comes on a Friday night. Because usually 4th of July comes in the middle of the week and you got to get up early the next day and you can't. But I mean, this is nice. It's going to be Friday night, so we could actually do some good partying. I'm actually going to go with some friends to dinner, and then we're going to go and see the fireworks. And, I don't have to worry about sleeping in the next day. So I'm pretty happy about that. Or I get to sleep in the next day. So I'm happy, although I am going to be working all weekend. I'm not going anywhere this 4th of July. I am working this weekend. And the reason why is we get call after call after call of burns where people got burned from their fireworks. And some of these are really, really bad. Now, when I did when I did urgent care, it was obviously even busier. I do telemedicine now. So I'm like, look, you got a firework burn. This is pretty dangerous. So I just want to quickly review, some history about fireworks. Because I think fireworks are some of the coolest thing. And then how to, safely enjoy 4th of July. So many historians believe that fireworks got their origins back in 200 BC in China. According to History.com, they said they would roast bamboo, which would explode with a bang when heated due to the hollow air pockets. And they did this to ward off evil spirits. At some point between 600 and 900 AD, Chinese alchemists, wanted to maybe, I guess we're working on the elixir for immortality, decided to mix saltpeter, potassium nitrate, which was a common kitchen seasoning at the time, and I think also helped to keep your sex drive down, with charcoal, sulfur, and other ingredients, basically making an early form of gunpowder. This was between 600 and 900 AD. The Chinese started to stuff this mixture into the bamboo shoots, and then when they threw it into a fire, it would produce a loud blast. They think that was the birth of the fireworks. Now, July 3rd, 1776, so 249 years ago today, John Adams penned a letter to his wife suggesting fireworks or illuminations to be used to celebrate the upcoming Independence Day. That the following day is when the Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence. The following year, they did use fireworks in Philly's celebration of Independence Day with a parade. So, I try to review all the laws. I think Massachusetts is the only state that bans any individual from owning or setting off fireworks. But with other states, the laws vary, and I have to double check if Massachusetts changed any of this. But for most states, there are certain fireworks that people could use, or I don't want to call them like the big fireworks, but certain lower end fireworks, smaller fireworks, such as party poppers, smokers, handheld sparklers, wheel, ground spinners, if approved by the CPSC, the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Illegal fireworks would be your rockets, your Roman candles, your wire and wooden sparklers, your projectile fireworks, anything that has gunpowder, thiocyanates, phosphorus, and arsenic. Those are probably not good. So what do the injuries look like? Well, I think there's at least 30 to 40,000 fires that apparently are estimated by fireworks. I mean, this is a dangerous time. Well, back in 2022, There were 3,500 structure fires, 887 vehicle fires, 26,000 outside fires just from 4th of July. Those fires caused 44 civilian injuries and about $109 million in property damage. That was back in 2022. The ERs had treated at least 10,000 people for fireworks-related injuries. Half of those injuries were to the extremities, but 35% of those injuries affected the eyes. All right, we have a relative from our extended family where one of the little sparklers, I guess, hit. They were legal fireworks. They were all outside in the neighborhood. Families watching the little ones that you could do on the street, and apparently one hit something and ricocheted, hit his eye, and he went blind in an eye. So we're pretty humble when it pertains to the injuries. Children younger than 15 years of age accounted for almost 1/4 of the injuries, and according to the Consumer Product Safety Commission, there has been a 25% increase in firework injuries over the last 20 years. So that means we're kind of messing around. Why is it? Maybe people are less scared of police. Maybe they feel, well, we have fewer officers, so nobody's going to bust us. Maybe they're just getting more careless. Maybe they're drinking more. Maybe they're high. Don't get high before you start playing with fireworks, okay? That's not a good idea. And don't get drunk. But sparklers are, I guess, one of the most worrisome. One, because they're legal, and so more people have access to them. But these sparklers, I think they could get up to a few thousand degrees? 2,000 degrees, I think, these sparklers. So we see a lot of sparkler fireworks sending kids and adults to the emergency room. So what are some of the injuries we see? Burns, eye injuries, facial injuries, hearing loss, people cutting themselves, broken bones, sprains, car accidents, because people don't, stand on the sidewalk wearing a reflective vest on 4th of July. They're out there in the middle of the street. And I remember, as a kid, all the neighbors would kind of get together, that throw some stuff, that have like a bucket of water, nearby, and we would all be in the middle of the street watching these, or we would go and watch them in the sky. I kind of prefer the ones in the sky. I really like the big fireworks. You're like, although sometimes your neck can hurt, depending on, so you definitely want to have an angle. Where I usually like to go is I like to go to a parking garage that's high up so that I could see most of the city. And it's really cool because you could see everything around, but there's something about being right there. In fact, I remember when I was a kid, one of my favorite fireworks shows, I was in Arizona, and I think it was Shea Stadium, where we got to go to the baseball park, and we got to watch a fireworks show there, and it was really fun. And I remember the announcer, it was like, ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that. And so my sister was making fun of the announcer, which I thought was pretty funny. So she made me laugh. But it was like one of the best firework shows ever because you were right there. You got to hear them, see them, and then you got to, make fun of the announcer. So if you had a choice, I would go and watch the fireworks. With the burns, these are very, very difficult for you to treat on your own. These burns are going to be at least partial thickness or full thickness. We used to call them 1st degree, 2nd degree, 3rd degree, 4th degree. We call them partial thickness, full thickness, superficial. And these burns, if you're touching something that's 2,000 degrees, it's going to be killing your skin. And these are burns that you're going to have to get medical care or burn care for. The burn care units are all prepared. The fire departments, God bless our firefighters and our first responders, are ready for fires and stupid people, setting off fireworks they shouldn't, that's causing forest and brush fires. So avoid purchasing and using illegal fireworks. These are not commissioned. These are not regulated. They're not safe. Do not allow young children to handle the fireworks. I know you want to look like the cool dad or the cool uncle or the cool aunt, but if these kids hurt themselves, you're going to be the uncool person. Do not let the kids touch fireworks. They can watch. Give them a job to do, like maybe hold the camera or hold the water bucket or something. Give them another job to do, but do not have them touch the fireworks. Use neighborhood cones or areas that are not in the flow of traffic. Have buckets of water and fire extinguishers nearby. Tell the bystanders to back the hell up. All right. I know everybody wants to be right there. No, tell them to back up. And the pets, okay, your animals, don't have them go and sniff or chase these things. I mean, your animal will chase us, these little poppers and things. Don't. And by the way, your animal is not going to really like all the noise. So make sure you have your animal in a safe area, maybe some hearing protection, because they cannot stand the sound of fireworks. They hurt. Do not relight a firework. Dispose of them by thoroughly dousing them with water. Do not carry them in your pocket. Don't be shooting them out of metal or glass casings. And please avoid hand sanitizer. Don't be hand sanitizing between each firework handling. 1-877 Doc Dolly. Don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So obviously the big news of the day is the big, beautiful bill going to pass the House. It looks like it is set to pass the House, but Hakeem Jeffries, Democratic leader, is doing a marathon of his statements, and I think he wants to try to break the record from Senator McCarthy and break his previous record. So I'm not expecting a vote till later in the afternoon, Eastern time, but the Republicans in the House of Representatives were able to advance it, having enough votes. I think it was 219 to 213. They cleared the final procedural hurdle around 3:30 a.m., according to the New York Post. So then the lawmakers reopened the debate for a final vote, and that was started at, I think, approximately 5:30 a.m. That is when Hakeem Jeffries, I believe, took, and he's allowed to talk and speak as long as he likes. And I think he's trying to delay the vote because President Trump wants to have the bill on his desk by July 4th. And I mean, it's amazing that Congress, both the House and the Senate, were able to do it by that deadline, especially since I'm not a fan of one big bill. I'd like to get the smaller bills done, out of the way, many of them bipartisan, but I guess that's how politics works. For people to be able to say they were a part of the no tax on tips and the no tax on Social Security, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, is more of a deduction, and a pretty decent deduction for people with Social Security, which I think is long overdue. Nobody should be taxing Social Security, but I think it was easier for them to add the deduction than to ban the tax part of it. But it's supposed to equate where you're not getting taxed on your Social Security, which was long overdue. And maybe that's why they have to do the big bill, because they need to have the popular things in there that help it go through. If you only pass all the popular things, then the other things that might not be so popular may never get passed. So that's my guess. But the procedural vote was held. And after the Senate had finally, narrowly, with the help of J.D. Vance breaking the tie, sending it back to the House, it looks like the House is ready to pass it. So what's going on now is Hakeem Jeffries is, I think, an hour 7 to 8. I think for him to beat the record, he has to go on another hour to an hour and a half. Which I mean, come on. But that's my guess. I don't think he's going to stop so that he could at least get the record. I don't really remember what happened when McCarthy did this. I really don't. I'm when I hear that somebody's doing a marathon filibuster, or long multiple hour speech, I worry about their bladder. I worry about did they have a catheter in? Did they how did they do this? And I start to get kind of squirrely, going, God, that had to be uncomfortable. I could barely speak for an hour or two. I mean, I could do my show, but then I have to run a pee. So Speaker Mike Johnson said that he's got the votes to pass the bill. They are ready to roll once Jeffries finishes speaking. I think then Speaker Mike Johnson will speak for about a minute or two, but I don't think he's going to speak long because everybody wants to start their holiday. It's really interesting, though, to see, the Democrats okay with this. If Hakeem Jeffries is not necessarily going to change anybody's mind. In fact, I believe there was a GOP representative who was actually, against the bill. And he said after listening to Hakeem Jeffries, he's like, never mind, I'm a yes vote. But, Hakeem Jeffries trying to get his own personal record at the expense of his other members who want to go home and be with their families and get ready for 4th of July. That's a little selfish. But I think that's what he's going to do. He started at 5:30. He could end at 1:30 or whatever, beat the record or however long it takes. And then he gets his credit. And then it goes down in history that he debated for that long. Although the problem is everybody kind of knows what this is now. It's just people wanting to get the record and being in the history books. It's not going to do anything. It's just him ranting and upset about things. And I get there are some parts to this bill that aren't popular. I know a lot of people are concerned about the spending. The problem is when it comes to the border and the defense and with everything going on, I think you do have a lot of support where we get our defense up and we get our border secure. And then, of course, we want tax cuts. So, yes, there's going to be more of a deficit because we're trying to cut taxes. We're trying to, save people money, put more money in their pockets, and we need to spend on, defense. But there's also a lot of other things that we're going to be spending on and we're going to try to be cutting. So, they're hopefully this could, advance. I don't want the deficit growing, but, I believe Trump, if he can get these tariffs, fixed, where we're overpaying and other people aren't, I think he'll be able to get more money in. So we'll see what happens. I really can't stand politics. We're surrounded by it. We're entrenched in it. We're drowning in it. We just can't get away from it. And, when you see how Congress works and, my guess is I'm not the first person to say, let's just do small bills, or I'm not the first person to say, come on, let's find the bipartisan issues. Let's agree on those. It changes. And the reason why it changes is there's an election next year. There's a midterm. And it's going to be very interesting to see what the Democrats do, because the anti-Trump sentiment might not win for them. So especially if they are against things that are pretty popular. The average American wants a secure border. The average American wants Americans to have access to health care and not illegals. And as much as I, as a doctor, want everybody to have access to health care, what do you do when the money runs out? So when you hear that there's homeless veterans and homeless Americans, especially in California, but we are housing illegal immigrants, some of them criminal, and giving them government subsidies, you kind of scratch your head going, wait a second, come on. We need to fix this. There's a lot of things we need to fix. Why are we spending so much tax dollars on NPR and other media that just bashes the government? That's not where our tax dollars go. If you're doing it for educational programs, that's one thing. But if it's all about, there's a lot of things that I think many of us, can agree upon. I know there's a lot of discussion on Medicaid and the cutting of Medicaid. If we have expanded Medicaid during the Great Recession, that lasted well into 2014, 2015, and the individuals have the ability to get jobs, then we should be seeing numbers drop on Medicaid. But no, numbers are going up. Why? Are people choosing not to work? And so there being a work requirement for able-bodied people that don't have young kids, why not? And I think there's a lot of bipartisan support for that, too. People don't want to necessarily cut funding to Medicaid because that looks bad on paper and they think people are going to be kicked off their insurance. But Medicaid, the whole purpose of Medicaid was to be there if your boss is not paying for your health insurance, or the health insurance your boss is providing is too expensive for what you make. So Medicaid is an option that you could go on. It's not for individuals who are disabled because you have Medicare for that. So it's really a tough argument, when you're telling taxpayers that healthy, able-bodied people with no medical conditions need us to pay for their health insurance so they don't have to work. That's a tough sell. And so, we really need to look at that. We also need to look at how to minimize fraud. We have to, there's so many things that have to be redone. So, I think bipartisanly people could work together, but they want to have some sort of a platform next year. And so we'll see what they say. 1-877 Doc Daliah, don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles, along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOCDALI. Well, 249 years ago, when the Founding Fathers were thinking next year, we should sign the Declaration of Independence and ratify the Constitution and, give birth to this amazing country. I don't think they knew that a quarter of a millennial, 250, is that what you would call it? A quarter of a millennium? Would, later, we would need the Constitution to clarify what's a male and what's a female. And here we are today, where that is one of what the media likes to see is one of the biggest divides I don't think it's the biggest divide in the country. I think a lot of people understand the situation. Yeah. And where people might want to identify, as a boy or a girl, biologically, your biology is your biology. You can't argue with your chromosomes. You can't change your chromosomes. But, it's not just about somebody making a personal decision and doing their own thing. Once it involves other people, now it becomes a societal issue. Once it involves taxpayers paying for the surgeries and paying for the medical care going into it. Once it involves girls having to bathe, shower, change in front of biological males who are identifying as a transgender woman, as it pertains to competing, as it pertains to medicine. I work with people who are transgender, and I have to be very, very careful in terms of, asking what their biology is, which doctors have to do because we have to know if you have testicles or ovaries. Because when some individuals become transgender, they completely change their thinking. So I've spoken to some transgender females who will say they have eggs instead of sperm. But you're not making eggs. You still have testicles. We need to know about that in case you have an epididymitis or an orchitis or a torsion or a hernia or testicular cancer. And so, once you start to involve other people where people have to now possibly do what they do differently, you're going to now get society involved. And it's getting to the point now where the Supreme Court is going to be deciding on whether states can ban transgender women or biological male identifying as women from being in girl sports. This has to do with state laws in Idaho and West Virginia. So the Supreme Court has agreed to look at two cases. And, you would have never thought that the Supreme Court would be, having to clarify and get involved. But it's gotten to the point, which, by the way, again, costs us tax dollars, but it's gotten to the point where they now have to step in. And it's two cases. It's going to be on the next term. I don't know if we're going to get a decision by next June, but it is cases that are going to be heard on the following term's docket, which I believe starts in September. And so many states have similar laws as to those of Idaho and West Virginia, but there are appeals from Idaho and West Virginia against lower court orders that block the bans from taking effect. An appeals court, according to Politico, ruled that Idaho's law violates the Constitution's equal protection clause by targeting transgender people, while another appeals court concluded that the West Virginia law violates Title IX, the federal law banning most sex discrimination by schools. And as I've said, Title IX, before the transgender discussion, Title IX was you cannot show somebody your genitals, of an opposite sex. You cannot make somebody feel uncomfortable. You need to give them, if they want to change and take off their clothes, and you can't make them feel uncomfortable. And so having a biological male next to a young female would have been a Title IX. But now Title IX changed under Biden to go, no, if you don't change, if you don't allow the biological male to be next to you in the shower, now that's a Title IX. So this has gotten, of course, it's gotten to the point where the Supreme Court has to get involved. They say the arguments will likely take place in the fall, but we might not get the decisions again until June 2026. One thing about the Supreme Court is the biggies, they like to drop right before they bail and leave town or the country or wherever they go on vacation. So usually the most contentious cases, although I think the majority of Americans, agree that, their daughters should be able to have privacy and compete, among, people of their biological sex. But so, last month, the justices voted 6-3 to uphold a Tennessee law that banned transgender medical care for minors. In 2020, the court issued a 6-3 decision that federal law bans discrimination against transgender people in employment. So, there's, if somebody wants to identify as a female, they should be able to get a job. They should be able to get food, rent, etc. But again, if it involves other people, somebody has to decide how we're going to move forward with this. And when you saw the Leah Thomas records, at Pennsylvania, is it University of Penn? It's you're basically telling women, biological women, that you're now going to be up against men, whether they identify authentically or inauthentically. If they want to compete against you, or they want to be in your locker room, or they want to be in your bathroom, you take a step back, because men are in charge. Men, whether they are if they're XY, they're superior, and they get all the protections of the law. And you have to take a step back and let them go to their sport, go into your bathroom, go into your private space, go into your sorority. They're men. You have to let them. Now, somebody could say, yeah, but Dr. Daliah, men have to let women. It's still different. Trust me, the average fraternity would love a woman in their fraternity. It's different. And there's safety issues. And again, I don't fear somebody who's truly transgender. I fear the person who's faking it. And we have had cases of assault where somebody faked it so they could get into a woman's private space, a bathroom, a gym, there's not a lot of red flags to warn a woman to give her a few moments notice to not be raped or attacked. But one sign is somebody being where they're not supposed to. Once you see somebody walk into your space, you scream. That's what we teach you. We for decades we've been teaching women. If you see a man walk into the bathroom and they're coming towards you, you scream, you fight, you whatever. Well, now it's all changed. Now, you're going to be sued because you just discriminated against a transgender individual. But how do you know? Where is your instinct? Where is your something's not right? So if people are going to now exploit this, and I don't know much about Leah Thomas's intentions, but knowing that she failed on the men's team and did not medal to the degree that she could on the females team, who's going to stop other men from wanting to do the same? It's pretty lucrative. If you told somebody who wanted to be rich and famous, all you had to do was dress up like a girl and identify as a female, a lot of people would do that. So again, the true transgender individuals, which maybe comprise less than 1% of the population, I really feel for. It's not easy waking up in a body that you don't want. They need a lot of support. They need a lot of help. But we need to do something as it pertains to affecting other people. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.